Hello, welcome to Ponds and Water Features Step by Step. My name is Keith Huff and I'll be your host. Through the course of this video, we want to demonstrate to you pond construction step by step, from site selection to pond installation to pond maintenance. The first thing we need to do is give you an overview of how pond building works. How a pond works. A water feature or a pond is simply a body of water that is contained, usually by a liner, with a system of waterfalls and streams running into it. A pump is used to circulate the water from the body of water or the pond through the falls or streams. On the intake side of the pump, there is a filter. We use a biomechanical filter. This means that the filter is mechanically trapping debris as well as organically breaking down these debris. This keeps your water clean and clear. Throughout these overviews, I will give you the basics of how each part of the pond works and how to construct it. The shape, size, and depth of your pond. The shape of your pond is entirely up to you. There are a few things to consider though. A pond with extreme bends or isolated areas can become stagnant. Because there is not enough water movement in that area, the water becomes too warm and oxygen is not circulated and is depleted. You may also encounter trapped debris that become waterlogged and build up on the bottom. With the warmth, the depleted oxygen, and the buildup of debris, you overpower the biofiltration. That area will be prone to algae and bugs like mosquitoes. The depth will contribute to the temperature of the pond. A finished depth of at least 1.5 feet will help keep the pond cool in the summer and above freezing at pump level in the wintertime. This depth will also increase the health and happiness of any fish in the pond. If you intend to have large fish, over 6 to 8 inches, you will want to go deeper, giving the fish at least one body length of vertical swimming. Now that we've gone over how a pond works, we need to get the area prepared where the pond's going to go. Now, one of the things you're going to need for sure is electrical. If you don't have an electrical outlet near the pond within, say, 10 feet, you're going to have to bring a line out. We brought out 2 circuits, each on a 20 amp breaker. Now we have enough power to run not only our pump, but also any outdoor lighting or any other things that we're going to want to run. The other thing we're going to need to get out here is water. If you don't have water near, you may want to go ahead and bring some out. You're probably going to want to irrigate around the pond as well, so we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So we've got water for an autofill to make sure that our pond always stays full of water, and water for our irrigation system. You must be aware and plan for the drainage coming into and out of your pond. You do not want runoff from the house or the yard draining into the pond. This water is full of chemicals, organic and non-organic debris, all of which can mean trouble for your pond. You do not want your pond in the lowest point of your yard. If there is no way to avoid runoff in the direction of your pond, you may consider a French drain system to divert the runoff. The amount of sunlight in the area will also dictate the design of your pond. If it is in full shade, you may use less plants or different types of plants. This may mean fewer or different types of planting shelves, like bog areas. If your pond is in full sun or mostly full sun, you may consider more planting shelves, a deeper pond, and longer runs of waterfalls or streams to help with cooling. You may even want to plan on planting a tree or 2 nearby. As you can see here, this is our soil berm that we're going to use to build our falls and our streams in. What we're going to do is we're going to mark out the pond itself, the shape that we actually want the body of water. Then we're going to mark out how far out we want our planting shelves to come out. We're going to want to excavate those in 2 stages. And then we can mark the general shape of our falls and on our streams. After you mark out the pond, then add the planting shelves. as these will be dug after the pond. Remember that you want to plan on everything being bigger than the finished size you want. Your materials will take up space, and you do not want to be disappointed with the size. So that's going to be the shape of our pond. So we've got the inner circle, which will be the pond body, and the outer circle, which will be our planting shelf for our marginal plants. Now for our stream, we'll have a top pool, like we talked about, like so, and then we're going to do a fall coming down one side into the pond, and then a little stream into a fall coming down the other side. Now this is just a guideline for us for digging. We can change the shape as we're digging and as we see fit. Pond safety. Ponds can be a beautiful and exciting addition to your yard or garden. They can also be dangerous. A child can drown in as little as 2 inches of water. A child should never be left unattended near a pond. You may consider putting a small fence around the garden area. The fence will also serve as a trellis and protection from unwanted animal guests. Loose and or wet stones can be a tripping hazard. Never allow people or pets to stand or sit on rocks in or around the pond. Pets, especially dogs, can pose a threat to your liner. Be aware that a dog going for a swim or a cat fishing can easily knock over a rock, exposing the liner to its claws. If you intend on allowing people or animals into the pond, you may consider mortaring all of the interior stones and providing an extra layer of rock to the bottom. Check with your local coding and laws on pond construction. In some areas, any body of water over 1.5 foot deep is considered a pool and must be fenced in. Other laws or codes may apply as well. These may include electrical or drainage issues. And remember, always call your local utilities before you begin to dig. Before you dig, you want to call for locates. You want to make sure you know where power and phone lines are. So we can go ahead and get started digging. Okay, we've got the pond dug out. I want to give you an idea of what you need to do to dig your pond. Now, what we've done is we've dug down a good 2 foot down, and we've got a nice big pond here. Of course, this would be proportionate to the size of pond that you're going to do. The 2 foot leaves us enough room for our river rock and our filter on the bottom of the pond, and still keep at least 1.5 feet of depth. Now we want to keep it again. We want to keep it at least 1.5 feet deep, so we can keep the water cool in the summertime and warm in the wintertime. We've also carved out a shelf for a boulder. This is a nice place for the boulder to sit up out of the river rock a little bit, so we can use a smaller boulder but make it look large. And we've cut out planting shelves out of the side. We've got 4 planting shelves, and we got those a minimum of 1 foot deep, so we have enough room to bring rock in and still rock on the edge here on this side, and still have enough room for our plants in 4-inch pots to come in. We've got a fairly level bottom here that we've leveled out so that our biofilter works evenly, and we have an even settling of the pond, and nothing goes into one deep area. You don't want to build a sump. And we've got a carved out area here by this boulder. This is where our pump is going to sit. This will make it easy to hide. We can stack a rock here, and stack a rock here, and the boulder, and then a rock right over top of it, and we'll be able to hide the pump real easy without actually setting a rock right on top of it. The liner needs to have enough overhanging, at least 1 foot to 18 inches on the side, so that we can compensate for any settling that may happen, and so we have enough that we can backfill against it if we have a low area. Then we're just going to measure right with the contour of the pond. The widest and the longest lengths. So we've got 18 feet going across this side. Now, we need to make sure we have enough liner going up to get to our top fall for our lap, so we won't have to glue any of our liner. So here we need to make sure we've got enough liner to come all the way up. So we need 20 feet there. So we need an 18 by 20. We'll probably just round that out to a 20 by 20 liner. That'll give us enough for all of our sides. We have enough overhang to compensate for settling, and so we can do any backfilling up against the liner if we need to, and we'll go over that. And we have enough to go up to at least our top fall, our first fall here, so that we can lay the fall liner down into the pond. We're going to do the split fall. We've got 3 drops on this side and 2 drops on this side. So that'll give us a nice, we won't be the same on both sides. We'll have a nice contrast of the 2 falls there. One of the things that we wanted to keep in mind is that we made everything big enough that once we've got our stones in the side and on the bottom, that everything doesn't shrink down below the size that we wanted to keep. So everything's kind of needs to be oversized a little bit. Remember, you're going to have stones against the sides and on the bottom, and that's going to shrink everything down. So everything needs to be oversized a little bit. Okay, so again, we need to make sure we have enough liner that it goes all the way down to the pond, unless you're doing a really deep pond, but we're just going to be safe and have that 2 feet there. We're going to follow the contours of our stream here, and because of the odd shape, we're going to have to do a little bit of guesstimating on this. We should come pretty close. And so we need about 19 feet there. And we'll give ourselves about 2 feet there to work with. You definitely want to oversize if you're going to do any kind of oddly shaped or multi-falls like this. If you were doing just one, you could just measure right down the stream, measure across, and you'd know. But because we're doing this odd shape here where we've got these curves, we're really going to have to overcompensate with the liner. We're going to end up with not enough. And we'll measure right across, and we've got 19 there. So we need a 19 by 19 or a 20 by 20 liner. That should give us plenty to blanket this whole area with the liner. And when we lay it and we start working with it, we'll show you how we're going to be able to cut it and get planting in, and it'll work real well for us. So we're going to go get our liner. Before we lay the liner for our pond, we need to get some padding down. A lot of people will use sand on the bottom. The problem with sand is that we can't really pad the sides of the pond with sand unless we just build a nice big old mound right up against the sides. So to retain the shape and the hard angles that we want, and to still get the padding we need, we're going to use some old carpeting. We've checked the carpet for any staples or nails that were used. Make sure we don't have anything to puncture our liner. We're basically just going to lay this stuff out along the sides and along the bottom, and that'll give us the padding that we want for our pond. There's nothing complicated about this. It's just laying it out, following the sides, and then trimming it out so that we don't have big rolls or big folds right through the middle, or anything that's going to come up and put bulges in our liner. I recommend a 45 mil butyl rubber liner. This is a medium price liner at a great value. It has great stretching properties, allowing for ground expansion and receding, as well as overall durability and conformity to the shape of your pond. As rubber, it is long-lasting as long as it is covered to protect it from ultraviolet rays. Okay, we're ready to lay out our liner here. We've just carried it right into the center, and we're just going to stretch it out, get it all laid out in its full open position, and then we'll start working it in. We're just going to try to find ourselves the center here so that we can do as little work as possible spreading this out. It can be pretty heavy. We're just going to take general care with the liner so as not to put a hole into it. Want to make sure that we have plenty of liner that comes up to our first fall areas here so that we can do our overlap with our liner so we don't have to do any gluing. Watch for any rocks or dirt clods that come in, and then you walk on them and that might put a hole in your liner. Now that we've got it spread, we can start working it in. Working it into all the corners, all the sides, getting it laid as flat as possible, working into all the planting shelves. Now, we've got a square liner, we've got a round hole, so we're going to have some folds. We want to try to keep them as nice and neat as possible and work them all the way up out, all the way to the edges of the pond liner. Single folds. Okay, we've got the fallen stream liner laid out here, and as you can see, we have the liner all the way down to the bottom of the pool. This gives us that lap that we talked about in Pond Basics. Now we're not going to have to glue this. We're not going to have to worry about sealing it in any way. We've got the pond liner from the pool underneath and the pond liner from the falls and streams over top, all the way down to the bottom. Now we can start working this into all of our falls and into our stream areas. Now one of the things that we're going to want to keep in mind when we fold these in is that we keep all of our folds on the sides going with the flow of the water. Okay, we got the fallen stream liner laid out. As you can see here, we've got it all folded in nice and pretty. We got all of the folds working with the water so they're not building up and making the water come out to leak. And we're going to start building our fall rock areas. We're going to start at the bottom and work our way up. We're going to use larger stones on the bottom and just start building them, mixing with some smaller stones. You definitely don't want to start out with small stones on the bottom. It just won't look right at all. So we're just going to work on either side, work our way all the way up to the top, creating each fall. Okay, we've set our rocks for our falls here. Basically just started from the bottom. We laid some large stones here, as large as a couple of guys we could get in here. You don't have to go with that large if you can't get them in there, but we wanted to use some pretty nice sized stones to start our base. We had extra scrap pieces of liner that we used underneath of these stones for padding. So we made sure all these stones that were sitting right on the liner, they had an extra piece of liner there for padding, or maybe a couple layers depending on the size and how it was setting down on the liner. And then we just started building up. And as you can see here, this was one of our planting shelves that we built out. So we've got a nice deep area here for a couple water plants. We built up a wall here We built up a wall on the side. Then we have a fall rock. We'll have this water coming off of this rock and coming down these rocks here, down this side. Then we've got our cheek rocks here. That'll consist of basically the fall area. These stones here will be the stones that are actually mortared in to force the water over, and we'll cover the mortaring in a little while here. So you can see it's pretty basic. We just stacked the stones as tightly as we could get them. We put the larger stones on the bottom and just kind of worked our way up. You can see this. We put a very large stone in here for this fall. This rock weighed about 800 pounds. It's pretty heavy. We had 4 guys to get it in here. Another large stone on the bottom. We didn't want to go with a bunch of little stones and put a large stone on top, so we had to make sure we had a nice big stone down there so we could make this look look natural. We built up our cheek rocks on the side so we can mortar there and behind here so the water will come over. And we've just basically created a wall with these fall rocks strategically placed for our water to come over. It's pretty simple. And we had to make sure that all of our rocks on the sides, all the way up, were higher than the water level is going to be. So we have to estimate where the water level is going to be and make sure that they're taller than that, or else we'll have a leak. We trimmed off our massive excesses of liner that were hanging way out. We still left ourselves a good foot and a half, as much as we could. But we stacked up our rocks on the inside edges here, as you can see, all the way up. And we had to bring this liner up and backfill against those stones. So the top of the soil here, where the liner comes over the top, is well above where the water level is going to be. And as you can see right here, this is a problem area. See how much lower this is to the rock? It's just barely above water level. So if any water comes up in here, we may possibly get ourselves a leak. So what we'll do is we'll just pull the liner back and just throw some soil in there. And just kind of compact it in there. We don't want a lot of loose soil. We need to make sure it gets compacted, or it's just going to settle out on us. We're going to have a false sense of security. By doing that, we can get it above, well above water level. So that gives us a nice clean edge. Make sure you don't cut your liner off too short. If you need to get rid of some that's excess, it's just in the way. Don't cut yourself short with your liner. And so we just continued right up the fall areas. This side we have 1, 2, 3 falls. On that side we had 1, 2, 3, 4 falls. We had a base stone and then a fall rock with cheek stones on the side, and then just your side stones on the interior, all the way up. Base stones, fall rock, cheek stones, and your interior wall stones here. So that's basically it. Now, we did have the split falls, and so we have this area right here in the center that we had to backfill against these rocks. We had to get this liner well above water level. So we cut ourselves a circle, leaving ourselves enough liner that we could bring soil in and backfill against these so that we can get well above the water level. We're a good 2.5 inches above the fall rock here. The water's only going to be about maybe a ½ inch above that. So we went ahead and just cut a nice circle in, backfilled, brought our liner up, backfilled, compacted in, just like that. And then this will be a nice area for a tree. We'll probably put like a nice lace leaf maple in here. And so we've just worked our way all the way up, put our beginning fall in right here, and our upper pond. We just kind of line that with stones to hold the liner in, and we can pretty that up when we start actually finishing up all of the side rocks and bringing in the river rock and whatnot. So we basically have the falls, the bones of the falls built. Next, we're going to have to start mortaring these falls in. Alright, so we're ready to start mortaring our falls. Now, the first thing I did was I put some river rock in to fill up some of the large holes. We had a large hole here and a large space between the fall stone and the liner here. So I want to fill that up so that I don't have to use so much mortar. The mortar won't stay very well, it'll start sliding down behind the rocks. So I just took some larger river rock and just kind of filled it in there. Now we basically know everywhere that the water would go that we wouldn't want it. Behind this rock here, into these spaces, back into this rock here. So we want to make sure that we get all that mortared in so the water's all forced over this fall stone here. So I'm going to go ahead and start bringing some mortar in. Now we've got a pretty large stone here, so we're going to be using quite a bit of mortar to try to get this thing the way we want it. We're going to work it in. Now if you're using a trowel, you need to be very careful with the point that you don't put a hole in your liner. Don't be afraid to get a good amount of mortar in there. And just start working it in. Now this mortar will discolor, and it'll be very, very hard to see it. When it does discolor, it'll discolor with the rocks. And we will press pea gravel into it as well. And the pea gravel will help to hide the mortar as well. So don't be afraid to get it in there, even in areas that might show, because we can hide that. And we just want to smooth it right onto the rocks and onto the liner. Just create a nice seal here. Now this mortar will not retain the water at all. Eventually it would leak. So it's no substitute for making sure that your liners are laid properly. But it will direct the water. And if the water has an easier direction to go, it'll go that way. And so that's what we want to do. We want to create an easier way, which is right over the front of our fall rock. Don't be afraid to move some rocks around, and just make sure you get enough mortar everywhere. Now I'm going pretty far back here, mortaring this, because I want to make sure that I don't get any trapped water behind the rocks, or where it can start working its way back in here and behind this rock. Now this rock's pretty big and it's set down pretty tight on the liner, but I really want to take full advantage of my pump. It wasn't a cheap investment, so I want to make sure that I see every dollar that I spent. So I want to make sure all the water goes over the falls. No exceptions. Take your time with this. If you end up with large holes that you don't know about, you can be really missing out on some of your water flow. You may think, oh, I should have got a bigger pump, when really you probably just should have spent more time mortaring your falls in. If you use your hands at all to spread this mortar, a good trick to help cut the lime, which will cause your hands to crack, be real dry, maybe burn, is go in and just get some regular white vinegar and wash your hands with that white vinegar, and then use some hand soap, maybe with some aloe vera or some lotion with aloe vera, And it won't smell very good at first, but it'll cut right through the lime that's in the mortar. And you won't have the dry cracking with your hands at all. Okay, so we've gotten this whole area here for this fall mortared in. Now, we made sure that we had enough mortar between these rocks around here that they went well above where the water level is going to be. Now we know the water's going to come off of this rock and it's going to come up above this rock, but we've got a nice lip here, so we had to kind of figure out where the water level is going to be about at this point here. So our mortar had to be above that on all these spaces between the rocks. If it didn't, the water would just end up going over top of that and going behind our rocks. So we just mortared in all the cracks, and then I just pressed pea gravel into it, into the wet mortar, and that'll help hide it quite a bit. Then when we're finished, when we start doing all the finishing work, we'll put some more river rock in here, and that'll finish it off so you really don't notice any of the mortar. As you can see here, we've gone ahead and went right up mortaring all these falls. It was the same concept all the way up. We filled in all of the spacings, all the cracks, any place the water would go before it went over the falls. And then we pressed river rock right into it. So we've got well above water level on all of our cracks here. As you can see, it's all well above water level. This whole area back in here is all filled with mortar so that no water goes behind these rocks. And in this area where we had these two separate rocks for this fall, we had to mortar all in this crack here. So we had to make sure all of this spacing right here between these rocks was completely filled with mortar. Otherwise we'd lose too much water behind them and we wouldn't get it off the final stone. And we just did that all the way up, keeping with those same principles. So now that we have all the falls mortared in, we're going to go ahead and install our plumbing so that we can test these. If we don't like something, or if we need to make a change, now's the time to do it. If we wait until we get all the river rock in and the rest of the rocks in, it's going to be really hard to remortar or refit a rock. So we want to install our plumbing and then test these out. Now make sure that you wait until your falls have cured before you turn on the water. I've done that many times and I end up having to re-mortar everything. So make sure it cures for 24, 48 hours so mortar's hard so it doesn't wash out on you. We went ahead and mortared for this planting shelf here. Now this doesn't have to be pretty at all. All we're trying to do is we're going to fill this up with a pea gravel kitty litter mix for our water plants. We're going to be taking them right out of the pots. So we just kind of created a container for them so that we could contain the roots enough that they weren't coming down between the rocks and into the pond and spreading all over the place. But the plants are still actually pulling nutrients right from the water in the pond and not just from their little pot. We do want them to get well developed and well spread in this whole planting area. That'll help with the cleaning function. But here we had to make sure that our mortar on this outside edge was below water level enough that the water can actually get in here. We're not worried about, again, we're not worried about it being pretty or anything. We're just trying to contain the roots basically.
With an under-gravel biomechanical filter, you are using the bottom of the pond surface as the filter. The river rock acts as a mechanical filter by trapping organic matter. It is also the media that the enzymes and microbes live in. The surface area is the key to this process. You must have enough surface area to accommodate the filtering of the entire pond. The pump intake is pulling the water, organic matter, and oxygen down through the river rock.
We've just used 3-inch perf pipe, and this works just like we talked before. It lays on the bottom of the pond. We're going to have river rock on top of it. The pump mounted at one end. It's going to be drawing water in down through the gravel, bringing all the organic matter and the oxygen down through the river rock where your enzymes and your microbes, they can start breaking down that organic matter, getting rid of it. That reduces the amount of nutrients that are in the water, so you're basically starving out your algae, and you're balancing your pH, and you're basically equalizing your water. Put it in simple terms. We've used a basic 3-inch perf pipe here. We've cut holes every 6-8 inches all through the entire length of the perf pipe in a couple different places, all the way around. If we don't do that, the holes that are in the perforated pipe are not quite large enough, and they'll restrict the intake from the pump too much. So we've just went ahead and put these holes in it. We capped one end, so we've got this end capped completely here, and we've just used the ABS tape to secure it. And on this end, we've got our 90, and again, this is just ABS tape here, securing that. This is where our pump's going to mount. So we've just got that laid out. We don't have it in a tight coil. We just kind of got it loosely laid out here. So we get as much area of the bottom of the pond is acting as a filter. That's what we want to create. We want to get just as much area as possible doing the filtering for us. The pump will be one of the most important components of the pond. The pump will control the final look of your pond. The number one rule of choosing your pump is, it is better to go big. The flow rate of your pump can be reduced, not increased. Choosing the right flow rate can be difficult. Pumps are sized by the GPH, gallons per hour, or GPM, gallons per minute. The high numbers can be deceiving. A pump with a flow rate of 1200 GPH, or gallons per hour, is rather small and would only be suitable for a very small waterfall or stream. For pond health, you will need to circulate the volume of water in the pond at least 1.5 times per hour. This, however, is usually less than necessary for the waterfalls to have the full effect. There are two types of pumps that are commonly used in ponds: submersible and centrifugal, or inline external. The submersible is more common and easier to use. They are also more economical to a point. Once you get above 6,000 to 7,000 gallons per hour, it may make more sense to move to a centrifugal pump. These require some ingenuity though. Hiding the pump and mating it to the filter can be tricky. So the next thing to do is to install the pump here. Now, it's a little tall, so once we get it mounted, of course we have our intake, the bottom of the pump here, which will sit right over this, and we'll have to secure this with stones so that it doesn't move around on us. And we just get this thing mounted right inside here, so the pump's secure. It doesn't have to be rock solid. We're going to end up putting river rock around this anyways, so it'll be a pretty tight fit. You notice we didn't glue anything. We're not gluing the pump down onto that at all. We're just making it sturdy. So now we have our pump mounted. Now from here we can start installing our all of our piping and all of our fittings all the way up. So we've got our pump. We've got our male adapter. It's right here. This has got the threaded, 2-inch threaded that slips down into the threads right down into the pump. Then it's got the slip on the other side, the 2-inch slip, so that our flex hose, we can glue that right down. These are standard PVC fittings for PVC pipe. Works great with the flex hose. We've got a short chunk of flex hose here, 2-inch flex hose that comes up, and then we put in a union. Make sure you get a union. If you ever need to get this pump out, if you ever need to pull it out for warranty issues, or if you, for some reason, whatever reason you might need to, if you don't have a union in there, you're going to have to cut your flex hose, or you're going to be like holding the pump up by the hose and trying to like spin the pump or spin all the hose or something. It makes it really difficult to get it off. So we've got a union here. Then we teed out, or we 90'd out of the pond. This gives us a nice flat way to get out of the pond instead of bowing our flex hose out. We get it nice and tight against the soil there. And then next, we 45 down into our ditch here that we have carved out for the flex hose up to the pool, up to the top pool. So we 45'd in, right down in. And then we have a T right here. Now this T, this end goes up to our top pool, to our header pool, and this will be for our drain. If we ever need to drain the pond out, if we're doing like a 1/3 water change or anything like that, that runs right to this T here. So we can turn this on and turn off our top ball valve, and we can use the pump to drain the pond out. And we can run this to our run this right out to our drain field or to our drain hole, depending on how we ended up doing that. We got the flex hose coming right up to our main valve here, if I don't fall in the ditch here. We've got our 2-inch ball valve here, this so we can turn off the flow to the top pool or reduce it if we have too much water and we have too much flow and we want to reduce the pump a little bit. And then it just goes right up to the top pool. We got some backfilling that we need to do against this top pool, so we wanted to make sure that we left enough flex hose so that if we end up bringing the ground level up here, we have enough. We're not too short. Once we know where our height's going to be, we can fold this in, we can 90 it in, we can cut it off, and then hide our hose inside of the top pool. Okay, we've got the bottom pool filled up enough to run the pump, so we're going to go ahead and test this thing out. Now we're going to go through and we're just going to look at each fall and see if it's leaking in any areas that we want to fix. Make sure that all of our sides are high enough. Now we're just watching each fall to see exactly how the water comes over, see if it's creeping over any of our sides where we're going to want to mortar some more, and how much of it's going under the rocks. We don't mind if there's a little bit that goes under the rocks, but we want to make sure we don't have a large gush of water coming underneath. We definitely got a leak here. This water's coming around and coming behind this, between these two rocks here, coming behind this rock and totally bypassing the main fall rock. So we're definitely losing flow there. So we're going to come back in and we'll mortar this space right here so we can force all the water back around. We've got maybe a little too much water coming down this space here and not enough out here, so we can put a small rock here, maybe mortar a small rock in right here to help block some of that water and divert it over the fall. So we can fill the water, go ahead and re-mortar those, let it set up, then test it again. We really want to make sure that these things are perfect before we go any further. Okay, so we finished patching up all the holes that we had. Those 3-4 areas that we showed you before where we were losing water and we weren't getting them over the fall rocks that way we wanted them to. So we got those mortared, they've set up, so now we're going to test this. We're going to make sure that it's all running the way we want it to run. So we're going to go ahead and run this thing. It's not really difficult it's just like putting a puzzle together or building a wall. We have those sloped sides, so the rocks just kind of leaned a little in up against the soil here, so it was pretty easy to do. We mixed it up. We tried to use some larger stones and some smaller stones, try to give it just kind of a blended, even look. We didn't want to go with all one size of rock, or it would look too monotone. And we went ahead and built up for our planting shelves. So we've got the front face of the planting shelf done, and the back face of the planting shelf done, the back wall here. We made sure that we had a good 6-8 inches that we can bring in our pea gravel and our kitty litter for our planting, for our actual water plants. These are ready to be mortared now, so that'll be the next step, is to go ahead and mortar these planting shelves, just like we did on that first one that we showed you. And we really tried to mix it up, so we used some larger stones, like this stone here. It's not really that thick, but the way we have it placed, it looks really larger than it is. So we have a nice looking stone here that kind of breaks up the edge, so it doesn't look all one size. We don't want to create a pearl necklace where we have the same size rocks all the way around the pond. That's really hard to make that look good. So we've got it mixed up, and we've got it looking very natural on the edge with different size stones just placed in there. None of those are mortared in. They're just sitting there, but we've tried to fit them together as tightly as possible. Okay, we've already put our river rock down on the bottom. And basically what we use is a mixture of a pea gravel like this. Now your pea gravel is going to come in a little bit different sizes. This is a little smaller than I like to use normally, but just about any size of pea gravel is going to work for you. And like we talked about in the filtration before, you can see this pea gravel has angular sides. So there's a lot of surface area. That's great for our enzymes and our microbes for our biological filtration. And one of the problems that we would run into is the type of filter that we used, our undergravel filter, we put those holes in it, and our pump would just suck this smaller pea gravel right in. Another problem is a thick layer of this pea gravel creates a pretty tight bond. It compacts down pretty tight. And so what we did was, we've got a 3/4 inch and a half drain rock like this, just a clean river rock, and we mix this in with the pea gravel. So right around the filter we have straight 3/4 to inch and a half drain rock right over that filtering material there, and that keeps any of this pea gravel from getting sucked into the holes. And throughout the rest of the area, we just mixed the 3/4 inch to inch and a half and the pea gravel together. We did about a 75-25 mix, where we had 75% of the pea gravel and 25% of the 3/4 inch and a half drained. And that breaks it up. So with these round rocks, they don't compact down. So we get good water flow through them, and we get oxygen all the way down through the river rock, all the way down to the biological filter. If we did just straight pea gravel, it would compact down, and only the first 1/4 to 1/2 inch of our river rock would actually be doing any kind of filtering. By the time the water got down, there would be no organic matter in it, and very little oxygen in it. So then it would you would starve out basically your microbes and your enzymes. Plants are vitally important to the health and aesthetic quality of your pond. By planting in the pond, you add to biofiltration and oxygen balance. It also helps to keep the pond cooler. By planting on the outside of your pond, you will help keep down dust, keep the pond area cooler, and smooth the edges of your pond, better blending it with the surroundings. Check with your local nursery on what type of plants to use in your area. They can also give you ideas on design. Keep low plants to the front and work your way back with taller plants. Be sure to try to get some plants in the streams and falls, as they will help with the mechanical filtration. Okay, so we went ahead and mortared in our planting shelves. And basically, what we're going to do is we're going to take some kitty litter. In this size, we're going to use about 1/2 bag of kitty litter. And all we're doing is we're creating just a more natural environment for our water plants, other than trying to use dirt or using straight pea gravel. Now they have water plant soils that you can use that won't flow or murk up the water, but it can be quite expensive if you're doing a large pond with a lot of planting shelves. So if you can use just an all-natural, unscented kitty litter like this, this will work just great for you. We're just gonna pour this in. Then we're gonna take some of our pea gravel, and we're just going to mix it up right here on the bottom, and we're just creating a nice loamy base for the plant's root systems. This will also hold nutrients a lot better than just straight pea gravel. It'll be able to soak in that water, and it'll help in the overall health of your pond as well, because it's holding in those nutrients. So we've just mixed that in there. And then we just top it off with pea gravel. That gives us our natural look. But we've got a nice, healthy base for our water plants. Just like that. It's pretty simple to do, and your plants will be a lot better off for it. Right now we're installing the overflow. Now what we've done here is we've taken a bulkhead fitting, put it through the liner just above the water level, and we've got it hard piped over to our drain. So basically when the water rises, it's going to come through the hole. We've got a downward slant in our pipe all the way to our drain. And it'll just flow right into the drain there, and the water will dissipate underground. Basically, taking a bulkhead fitting like this right here, got a bushing here. We've taken and we figured out where our liner was, where we need to make our hole. We just put a little mark there, and then we've just cut a hole. Now we made sure that we cut it kind of small. We don't want to make it so big that this just slips right in real easy. It's got to be made sure that it's a little bit smaller, because the liner's going to stretch. We definitely want it smaller than we do larger. We're going to have a hard time keeping this from leaking. So we made sure we made our hole nice and tight, and then this can just slip right in the hole in the liner. And then bring the liner up, and this is just screwed right down tight with the liner. Then we just take an 1.5 inch insert, and we screwed that right in. Now, there's no pressure on this. We didn't need any tape. It's just hand tight here. And that gives us our 1.5 inch to run our pipe. So we just run pipe from here to our drain. We dug a trench. We went ahead and reduced this to 1 inch. We just ran 1 inch pipe from the bulkhead fitting to our drain. We 45'd it over, dropped it right down into our drain here. Now this hole's about 4.5 feet deep, and we're just going to fill it up with river rock, and then we'll put some weed barrier, some weed cloth right over top of it, and then we can put bark dust over it, or sod, or flowers, whatever we want to put over top of it. So we hide this drain, but it gives us a nice place for all of our overflow to come in. We have our tee from our main line, goes up to our top pool, and we have that the ball valve that we put in. That ball valve, we just brought in our line, we left it open, glued in our line, run it right in, right down into our drain here. So whenever we want to drain out the pond, whenever we need to do maybe a 1/3 water change, we can do that in about 2 goes. Turn it on, let this fill up, turn it off, let it dissipate, turn it on, let it fill up, and about that we've got about 1/3 of our water changed. And again, we're never going to want to do any more than 1/3 water change. So that takes care of our drain and our overflow. We're ready to go. Now, one thing you want to be careful of is that when you start stacking rocks on top of this overflow, that you don't block the intake and that this doesn't get pressed down so hard that it gets below the water level, below where you want the water level to be. Okay, so what we've got here is our dry well. And basically what we did was we dug a hole a little bit wider than a 55-gallon drum and about 4.5 feet deep, and we just filled it with a 2 to 6 inch river rock. Then we have our pipes coming in. This pipe is from our overflow that we put into the side of the pond. So whenever the pond reaches a certain height, it drains. The pipe's at a slight downward angle so that any of the water just flows right into this. So any overflow we have from rain or anything like that comes into our dry well. Then we also have this pipe here, which this comes from our drain. So if we ever need to drain out the pond, like do a 1/3 water change, we have a nice area to drain our pond out. This will not hold the full volume of water, obviously, but we can do a 1/3 water change with the amount of water that we have, which is all we're ever going to need for doing general maintenance on the pond or doing any cleaning, spring cleaning or anything like that. So it's pretty simple to do, pretty easy. If you've got a large pond, you may consider going ahead and doing a couple of these linked. Obviously make sure that the water can run down to each of them. That way you don't have to dig one that's 8 feet deep or anything like that. So next we're going to show you our autofill. So next, we can install our autofill, and that'll allow us to never have to drag a hose over to the pond whenever we get evaporation or anything like that. It'll just kick on automatically and start to fill our pond. And one thing you want to remember with your overflow is, if you kill your pump once the pond's full, all the water is going to come down into the pond, and it's going to go out your overflow. When you turn it back on, you're going to fill up your top pool and all your falls. Don't be afraid that your pond's leaking. You've just lost some water through your overflow. So basically how this functions here is we've got this nice external version of an autofill, which is real nice because it's not taking up room in the pond. And it just basically works like a toilet. When the water level drops, this float drops down, kicking on the water. When this fills up to our water level, it'll just turn it off, just like that. Basically, we've just got this container here. Down towards the bottom here is where we've got a pipe that runs at a slight downcline towards the pond. So it's down into the water there with a bulkhead fitting, just like we showed you how to install with your overflow. And the pipe, hard pipe up to the fitting down here, down towards the bottom of this. And then we set this float with this fitting right here. We just set the float to where our water level is. So we can check our water level. Basically, this will fill up with water. Once we put the bulkhead, make the connections, this will fill up with water. We make sure our pond's at the level that we want it. And then we just set the float so that that's full. And then once it drops below that, it'll kick on the valve and start filling the pond up. And it's pretty simple installation. It's going to come with instructions. It's pretty easy to do. Okay, moving along with the finished work, the next step we're going to do is we're going to trim our liner out. Now, we've got all of our rocks set, all the mortaring done, the water's been running for a couple of days, we've done a lot of settling. We basically know where the liner needs to be cut. We want to make sure that we don't cut it too short though. Over the winter time we're going to get a little bit more settling. And if it's too short, it's going to pull it right in and we're going to get leaks. But basically, we're just going to come down, find our water levels, and make sure that we cut well above the water level. Give ourselves a good inch or so above water level. So if we need to backfill against that to raise the level a little bit, we can. And we're just going to start trimming it out. We'll just do that all the way around. Any of the carpet that's sticking out at this point, we can also trim that back. And we're just creating a nice clean edge to start bringing our river rock or whatever other type of edging that we choose to use around the pond. Okay, so hiding this dry well is going to be pretty easy. We're just going to fill it up with river rock. Then we can take a nice piece of weed barrier or weed cloth like this. We're basically just creating a barrier so that all of our soil doesn't seep right down into the river rock, creating a mud mess. We're trying to create as much space in there as possible to hold all of our water. Like that, we've got a nice barrier to keep the soil from coming in, and we can cover this with more river rock if we'd like, or we can create a nice little flower bed area here. We can put some accent stones and set them around and just kind of hide it. Put some bushes, whatever we end up wanting to do to hide this area. We can even lay some sod over top of it, and it would work just fine. So this makes it real easy to hide this dry well to get the full function of having a nice deep dry well to handle all your overflow and any of the draining that you might need to do with your pond. Okay, so a nice added touch to our water feature is going to be some outdoor lighting around the pond. It's pretty simple. We just did basic low voltage lighting. We've got a transformer. We're running about 6 lights out here. One of them which is in the pond, which is a special underwater light. It works right off the same transformer, right off the low voltage transformer. We've got a couple spotlights that we installed that run right up. We're just shooting them right down the falls here, so at night those falls will kind of glisten. I've got one over here on the other side of the water feature, and I've got a couple of can lights. They're just going to be shining right up into some of our trees and some of our bushes that we're going to have. And then we have this one underwater light here that you can see right here. And that just kind of gives the pond a little glow. We're not trying to really light it up real bright, but we definitely want it to be able to see and enjoy the pond at night. I think the homeowners here have future plans to put a gazebo in, and this will be perfect for viewing the pond at night. We basically made sure that we got our lights in and all of our wiring in before we started getting too far into the finished work, because we want to make sure that we could dig trenches for all the wiring, and we could dig holes to place all the lights in. But it's pretty simple to run low voltage. You're going to have instructions in the box. Just make sure that you get a transformer that's big enough to run all the lights you want to do, and have fun with it.
Fish. As we discussed before, make sure you do not overpopulate the pond with fish. Also, carefully follow feeding instructions. When the water temperature drops below 68 degrees, your fish will not eat all, if any, of the food. The food will then drop to the bottom, only creating more work for your filter. You never want to overfeed your fish. You want your fish to help with the pond health by eating bugs and other organic matter that are in the pond.
Okay, so we've about got this pond completed here. I just want to go over some of the finishing touches that we did with the pond and explain some of the situations that we got ourselves into as we were finishing the pond. Now, as you can see, we basically just finished bringing the river rock right up along all the edges, bringing it right up to the rocks. We used some of the larger river rock to kind of fill in some gaps, and then bring the smaller pea gravel right up against that. That way we don't have pea gravel slumping in all the time. We trimmed our liner back nice and tight. We left ourselves at least 3 inches all the way around, so if we get any more settling, that we'll be okay there. Remember, in the wintertime and summertime, you're going to have expansion, and then you're going to have shrinkage of the ground. So we wanted to make sure we left enough pond liner for that. And we just finished it all the way around. We did some different shapes. We didn't go with this a straight line of pea gravel. We didn't want to have 6 inches of pea gravel all the way around the pond. That would look a little too man-made. So we tried to bring it in a little closer in some areas. And like where this plant is here, we brought it way out. And also this pea gravel is pretty deep. In most of the areas here, this pea gravel is at least 1 inch deep. That way, if you're walking on it and whatnot, you're not brushing the pea gravel aside and showing bare earth or the pond liner popping up through it. So we made sure that it was plenty deep there as well. We've got some low-growing plants in the front too, with just the tall on the perimeters of the front 2 planting shelves. That way they don't get too tall, hiding or blocking the view of the surface water. Then we can go with some taller plants back here in the center planting shelf. We've got some irises there, some water irises, with some low-growing stuff that'll kind of fill in. The creeping jenny there, which will fill in around those irises and give that a nice green effect and actually start creeping up the wall there, the back rock there. And then we went with some low-growing bushy plant there. We didn't want to get anything too tight against that far right planting shelf, anything too tall, so we didn't want to block the view of our light. So we made sure that was going to be colorful, has little yellow flowers, it's nice and green, but it won't get too tall. Then in just some pockets along the streams, we added some rushes, some miniature cattails, and some other plants and some colors. And back into the back stream in the header pool, we used a lot of rushes and whatnot. And those are going to help act as a mechanical filter. They're going to help trap silt and whatnot that would cloud up the water. And then, of course, all of the plants are pulling excess nutrients right out of the water, keeping our algae growth down, and keeping the water quality real healthy with this natural biological filtration with the plants in the planting cells. We added a few step stones in the area. You can use stone, or you could use bricks, or whatever you decide to do. We actually use cedar logs that we cut into 4-inch slabs. The cedar will hold up real well to the moisture, and we just made cedar step stones that come on either side of the pond. We have some stone benches that we had made that we can have a nice seating area. Now we did leave the front edge open basically. We've just got some low-growing plants, some grasses, some different types of grasses along the front edge on a nice river rock perimeter, because eventually we're going to put in a stone patio right in front of this water feature. So this is going to look real nice, and as you can see, it's already really taken shape. The pond's nice and clear and healthy. It's been running for a few weeks now, and we really like it. And the homeowners here are already getting a lot of enjoyment out of their pond. So I hope that yours turns out just as nice and that you enjoy it as much as we have.
little boy. You turned your beeper off.
My son's birth.
Some poetic justice.
He got killed. See his body.
It hasn't been.
Even if he is alive, come back to the city.
Eve.
You think is your husband. Please
Just listen. Go to your mother's. I need Victor. I have information about Sean Archer. You're Sean Archer. After Troy.
Convicted. Did you have any information about Freud?
Dick Hart. Cheryl. You're still suing Roy. Drive! Me, man. Ha! My curse, I can't say no to it. Yeah, that's my other curse. What?